Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a man called Daniel and Sarah, a receptionist at Greenfield Sports Center. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good afternoon, Greenfield Sports Center. This is Sarah speaking. How can I help you?
Oh, hello. Yes, I'm calling because I'm interested in joining as a member. I saw your advertisement online, but I couldn't find all the details I needed.
Of course. I'd be happy to help. Can I start by taking down a few details?
Sure, no problem.
Could I get your full name, please?
Yes, it's Daniel. Daniel Hargreaves. That's Hargreaves.
Hargreaves. Thank you. And your date of birth, Mr. Hargreaves?
It's the 14th of March, 1989. Yes, the 14th of March, 1989.
Perfect. And could I get a contact number for you?
Yes, it's 07714. Actually, let me just check. It's 07714 882 563.
07714 882 563. Got that. And your email address?
It's d.hargreaves all lowercase at greenmail.com.
d.hargreaves@greenmail.com?
That's right.
And which membership type are you interested in? We have Standard, which gives you access to the gym and swimming pool, Premium, which includes all group classes and the spa facilities, and Family, which covers up to 4 family members.
I think I'd like the Premium one. Actually, you know what, does Premium include the squash courts?
Yes, it does. Squash court booking is included in both Standard and Premium memberships.
Great, then yes, Premium, please.
Before you hear the rest of Section 1, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Excellent. Now, how did you hear about us? Through a friend, online search, social media, or a local advertisement?
I think I saw something in a local magazine, or was it a leaflet? No, actually, I'm pretty sure it was online. I was just browsing and it came up.
Alright, so online search. Now, if you sign up before the end of the month, you get your first month at half price, that's £29.50, instead of the usual £59.
Oh, that's great. Can I ask about parking? I usually drive in.
We have a car park at the rear of the building. It's free for members for up to 3 hours, and after that it's £2 per hour.
And what are your opening hours on weekends?
On Saturdays we are open from 7 in the morning until 9 in the evening. On Sundays it's a little shorter, we open at 8 and close at 6.
Is there a joining fee?
There was, but we've recently removed the joining fee. So it's just the monthly membership cost now.
Wonderful. I'd like to go ahead with joining then. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Not at all. We look forward to seeing you at Greenfield. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That is the end of Section 1. You now have some time to check your answers. Section 2. You will hear a tour guide called Celia giving an introductory talk about the Harborview Heritage Trail. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Harborview Heritage Trail. My name is Celia, and I'll be your guide for today's walk. Before we set off, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what to expect. The Harborview Heritage Trail was officially opened in 2009, though the area itself has been of historical significance for well over 2 centuries. The trail is approximately 3.5 kilometers long and typically takes between 90 minutes and 2 hours at a leisurely pace. First stop is the Old Lighthouse, which dates back to 1847. It was operational for over 100 years before being decommissioned in 1962. Now, many people assume it was built by the local fishing community, but actually, it was funded by a shipping merchant named Edward Callaway. The lighthouse has been fully restored, and you can climb to the top, it's 78 steps, for simply remarkable views. Next, we'll pass by the merchant's granary. This was constructed in the early 1800s and was originally used to store grain imported from the Baltic countries. Today it serves as a small craft gallery where local artists display and sell their work. Entry is free, though donations are always appreciated. After the granary, we'll reach the salt marshes, a designated nature reserve home to over 40 species of migratory birds. The best time to spot wildlife is in the early morning, particularly between September and November. Please remember to stay on the designated paths, as stepping off can damage the fragile ecosystem.
Before you hear the rest of Section 2, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
I should mention that mobile phone reception can be quite patchy in some areas, especially near the salt marshes. So don't be alarmed if you lose signal there. A little further along, we'll stop at the Heritage Museum. This opened in 2015 and houses a permanent collection of maritime artifacts from the area, navigation instruments, old maps, and a wonderful scale model of what the harbour looked like in the 19th century. There's also a cafe inside where you can take a short break and have a warm drink. Toilets are available near the entrance to the trail, and again at the Heritage Museum, approximately halfway through. There are no toilet facilities near the salt marshes or the boatyard, so please plan accordingly. The final highlight today will be the old boatyard, located near the end of the trail. The boatyard was active until the mid-1970s and was responsible for building many of the fishing vessels used along this coastline. It's now been converted into a community education center, running regular workshops on traditional boat building techniques. Children particularly enjoy the hands-on demonstrations. Right, if there are no questions, let's make a start. Please stay together as a group, and one final reminder, please don't feed the birds in the salt marshes, as tempting as it might be.
That is the end of Section 2. You now have some time to check your answers. Section 3. You will hear two students, Yasmin and Marcus, discussing their research project with their academic supervisor, Dr. Patel. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Come in. Yasmin and Marcus. Good to see you both. Sit down. So, this is your mid-project check-in for your research on sustainable urban food systems. How's it going?
Honestly, Dr. Patel, we've hit a bit of a wall. We started out looking at community gardens as the main focus, but we were finding there's so much more to cover than we originally thought.
Yeah, we've got loads of data on allotment schemes in 3 different cities, but we're not sure which angle to take with it.
Okay, let's start with your research question. What is it currently?
It's something like how do community food gardens contribute to local food security? But I feel it's a bit too vague.
That is quite broad, yes. Have you thought about narrowing it to a specific outcome, say, social cohesion, nutritional impact, or economic savings?
We discussed economic savings quite a bit. There's some really interesting data about cost reductions for low-income households.
That could work, although the challenge is that self-reported savings are often unreliable. The data is very difficult to verify with any confidence.
That's exactly what I said. I thought social cohesion might be a stronger focus. There are more standardized measurement tools available, like the Well-being Index.
You're right, those are more robust methodologically. But you also need to consider whether you can realistically collect that kind of data within your remaining time frame.
That's a fair point. We only have about 6 weeks left.
Let me suggest something. Rather than trying to measure impact yourselves, what if you did a comparative analysis of existing studies? There's a reasonable body of literature now. The originality doesn't have to come from new data collection. It can come from the analytical framework you apply. If you synthesize existing studies through a particular lens, public health, or urban planning policy, that's a valid original contribution.
Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. We could use a public health lens. That might also help tie in the nutritional angle.
We did think about something like that, but we were worried it might not be original enough for the assignment brief.
Before you hear the rest of Section 3, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Now, methodology. Have you settled on which cities you're comparing?
We were looking at Bristol, Rotterdam, and Detroit originally. But Detroit's data is quite old. Most of it's from before 2015.
Data currency is important. What about replacing Detroit with a city with more recent programs? Toronto has had some interesting urban agriculture initiatives since 2019.
We did look at Toronto briefly, but there were some language barriers. A number of the local council reports are written in French.
Well, much of Canada's public documentation is bilingual, so that shouldn't be an insurmountable problem. But if it feels like too much additional work, another option would be Melbourne. There's a very well documented urban food policy there.
I actually like Melbourne. It was on my original shortlist before we narrowed it down.
Good. Now, timeline. When are you planning to have your draft ready?
We were thinking 2 weeks before the final deadline, so that gives us time to revise.
I'd push for 3 weeks before the deadline if at all possible. The revision stage always takes longer than students expect, and I'll need at least a week to give you proper feedback. So, if the deadline is in 6 weeks, draft done in 3 weeks, I'll feedback in week 4, and you'll have weeks 5 and 6 to revise and polish.
That's a bit tighter than I'd like, but I think we can manage it if we divide the work more clearly between us.
Good. One final point. Have you considered the ethical approval process? Since you'll be working with participant interview data from previous studies, you need to confirm that those studies had appropriate ethical clearance.
We hadn't actually thought about that. Would we need to apply for our own ethical approval?
Not necessarily, since you're analyzing existing data rather than collecting new data. You likely just need to verify that the original studies had ethical clearance. Check the methodology sections of those papers. It should be stated there.
Right. I'll add that to our action list. Thank you, Dr. Patel.
Great. I'll see you at the next check-in. Good luck.
That is the end of section 3. You now have some time to check your answers. Section 4. You will hear part of a university lecture on the urban heat island effect. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning. Today's lecture continues our series on environmental urban planning, and we'll be focusing on a phenomenon you've probably experienced but may not have had a name for: the urban heat island effect. So what exactly is an urban heat island? The term refers to the phenomenon whereby built-up urban areas experience significantly higher temperatures than the surrounding rural countryside. The difference can range from just 1 or 2 degrees Celsius in smaller cities, all the way up to 10 degrees in very large metropolitan areas. This isn't a new observation. It was first documented by a meteorologist named Luke Howard back in 1810, when he compared temperature records from central London to those from the surrounding countryside. Luke Howard is often called the father of meteorology, and his work on this topic remains remarkably relevant today. What causes this effect? There are several contributing factors. The most significant is the replacement of natural vegetation with hard, heat-absorbing surfaces: concrete, asphalt, brick. These materials have what we call high thermal mass, meaning they absorb heat during the day and release it slowly at night, which prevents the natural cooling that occurs in vegetated areas. A second factor is the reduction in evapotranspiration, the process by which plants release water vapor into the atmosphere, which has a cooling effect. When you remove trees and replace them with buildings, you eliminate this natural cooling mechanism entirely. The third major factor is waste heat from human activities: vehicles, air conditioning units, industrial processes, and so on. It's worth noting that air conditioning is a particularly ironic contributor. We use it to cool buildings, but in doing so we push heat out into the street, which raises outdoor temperatures, which makes us rely more on air conditioning. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. Now, what are the consequences? The most obvious is discomfort and increased energy demand. But more seriously, heat islands are linked to higher mortality rates during heat waves. A study of the 2003 European heat wave, which killed approximately 70,000 people, found that urban residents were significantly more vulnerable than those in rural areas. There are also environmental effects. Higher temperatures accelerate the formation of ground-level ozone and other air pollutants. And impermeable surfaces mean increased stormwater runoff, which leads to urban flooding and water quality problems. So what can we do about it? Researchers and planners have identified several mitigation strategies. The first and most well-established is urban greening, planting trees, creating parks, and installing green roofs. Studies show that tree-lined streets can be up to 8 degrees cooler than streets without trees. Green roofs can reduce roof surface temperatures by as much as 40 degrees Celsius on hot days, though the ambient effect on the surrounding area is more modest. A related strategy is the use of cool roofs painted white, or covered with reflective materials. These reflect sunlight rather than absorbing it. This is a very cost-effective solution, relatively simple and inexpensive to implement, and has been widely adopted in Mediterranean cities, particularly in Greece and southern Spain. Then there's permeable paving, replacing impermeable concrete with materials that allow rainwater to pass through. This helps restore the evapotranspiration cycle and reduces flooding. However, permeable surfaces are more expensive to install and maintain than conventional paving, which does limit their uptake. Finally, there's urban planning at the macro level, designing cities to maximize airflow through what are called urban wind corridors. This involves orienting streets and buildings to channel prevailing winds, allowing cooler air to circulate through the city. Several cities in Asia, particularly in China and South Korea, have started incorporating wind corridor planning into their urban development frameworks. In next week's lecture, we'll be looking at case studies of cities that have implemented these strategies effectively, particularly Singapore and Vienna, which are considered global leaders in this area. Thank you.
That is the end of section 4. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.